People always said I had the perfect life. A sweet husband. A comfortable home. A career that made me proud. And on most days, I almost believed them. Every morning, I'd wake up to the smell of Mark's coffee brewing in the kitchen. He always made it the same way, black, 2 sugars, no cream. The sound of the machine, the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the light creeping through the curtains. Everything was predictable, peaceful, and yet, somehow unbearable. We used to talk, Mark and I, about everything. The future, our dreams. Now, the only thing we talk about is what brand of detergent to buy. We sit across from each other at dinner, our forks scraping the plates. And I can feel this invisible wall rising higher every single day. Sometimes, when he's not looking, I stare at his face and try to remember what I used to love about it. But all I see now is a stranger wearing my husband's smile. My coworkers think I'm happy. They see my wedding ring and the fake smiles I've practiced for years. But inside, I'm like a painting hung in the wrong museum. Beautiful, maybe, but misplaced. I started to realize perfection isn't peace. Sometimes it's just the quietest kind of prison. And then, one day, everything changed. It was a Thursday morning. I was late for work, holding a paper cup of coffee that was already too cold. That's when I saw him standing by the elevator. Ethan. He wasn't supposed to mean anything. Just another client. Another face in the crowd. But when he looked at me, really looked at me, it felt like he saw something no one had seen in years. And for the first time in a long time, I remembered what it felt like to be alive. I didn't know it then, but that moment, that single, stolen look in a crowded hallway, was the beginning of everything that would break me. They say that every bad decision starts with something small. A single text, a single look, a single moment when your heart speaks louder than your mind. That's exactly how it started with Ethan. The first week, it was just meetings, polite, professional, harmless. He was easy to talk to. Confident, but not arrogant. The kind of man who listens and actually hears you. He asked questions about my work, my ideas, my life. And every time I answered, I felt something dangerous. Something I hadn't felt in years. Mark hadn't asked me about my day in months. But Ethan did. He looked at me like my words mattered. The first time we met outside of work. It was an accident, or at least that's what I told myself. We both left the office late. It was raining. He offered to share his umbrella. We walked side by side through the parking lot, our shoulders brushing, our reflections shimmering in the puddles. He joked about how romantic it looked, and I laughed, pretending not to feel the electricity running down my spine. We ended up at a small cafe on Teeth Street, the kind of place no one really notices. Dim lights, jazz music, the smell of cinnamon and rain. We sat for hours, talking, laughing, forgetting who we were supposed to be. When I finally got home that night, Mark was already asleep. He'd left my dinner on the counter, covered with foil. I stared at it for a long time. The food was still warm, but somehow, it made me feel cold. I told myself it was nothing. Just a harmless friendship. Just someone who made me feel alive again. But lies have a way of sounding like comfort when you whisper them often enough. The next day, Ethan texted me. Had a good time last night. Maybe we should do it again. My fingers hesitated above the screen. I should have said no, but I didn't. One coffee turned into 2. Then lunch. Then late afternoons that stretched longer than they should have. We never talked about Mark. Never talked about right or wrong. Just about us, the version of us that only existed in stolen time. I remember one afternoon, the sun was melting into the city, and he looked at me across the table with those green eyes and said, "You deserve to be happy." It was such a simple thing to say, and yet it broke something in me. Because deep down, I knew he wasn't talking about happiness. He was offering escape. The first time he touched my hand, I didn't pull away. It felt wrong. It felt perfect. Every nerve in my body screamed no. But my heart whispered stay. We both knew where it was heading. We both knew it couldn't end well. But when you've been starving long enough, even poison tastes like salvation. That afternoon, we were supposed to just talk, but the silence between us became unbearable. He reached for me, and I didn't stop him. When it was over, the room was quiet, too quiet. He smiled. I tried to smile back, but my hands were shaking. I looked at him and realized I wasn't the woman I thought I was anymore. Something had changed, and there was no going back. Driving home that evening, the streets looked different. The world felt heavier. And when I walked into my house, Mark greeted me with that same gentle nod. The same tired smile. I kissed his cheek. He didn't notice the tremor in my voice when I said I love you. That night, I couldn't sleep. The guilt felt alive, breathing beside me in the dark. And yet, somewhere deep inside, I knew I'd go back. Because once you've opened that door, it never really closes again. I told myself it was love. But now, I think it was just loneliness. Wearing love's disguise. It's strange how quickly a lie can start to feel like home. For weeks, I lived between two worlds. One lit by the warm, steady light of my husband's routine, and the other flickering like a candle that could burn me alive at any second. Ethan and I met when we could, stolen hours, hidden corners. The kind of places where love doesn't look like love, it looks like survival. And every time I came home, Mark's kindness was unbearable. He'd ask how my day was, and I'd smile, lie through my teeth, and tell him it was fine. But guilt has a sound. It whispers when the house is quiet. It follows you down hallways. It breathes at the back of your neck when you try to sleep. I thought I could manage it, hide it long enough until I figured out what to do. Then one day, it happened. It was a Thursday. Funny how disaster always finds the most ordinary days. I came home late. The rain was coming down hard, and my phone was dead. When I walked in, the house was dark. Too dark. Mark was sitting on the couch. No TV, no lights. Just him, waiting. He didn't say a word at first. Just looked at me. And then he held up my phone. On the screen, a photograph. It was me. In Ethan's car. My head on his shoulder. Smiling that stupid, happy smile I hadn't used in years. I froze. Every cell in my body screamed to say something, anything. But there was nothing left to say. He looked at me with the kind of calm that feels worse than rage. He said, "I knew. I was just waiting for you to tell me." The room spun. The air felt thick, like I was breathing underwater. I wanted to run, to scream, to undo everything. But instead, I just stood there, silent. He asked me one question. Just one. Do you love him? And the truth is, I didn't know. It wasn't love. It wasn't hate. It was something in between, a hunger, a need to feel alive in a life that had gone numb. I couldn't answer him, so I didn't. That night, I slept on the couch, or maybe I didn't sleep at all. Every creak of the house felt like it was judging me. Every drop of rain sounded like forgiveness I didn't deserve. The next morning, he was gone. No note, just silence. And the photograph, printed, lying on the kitchen table. That was the day I realized the truth. When you betray someone who trusts you, you don't just lose them. You lose the version of yourself that could ever look them in the eye again. Later that day, Ethan called. I didn't answer. I stared at my phone for hours, watching it light up, watching it fade, again and again like a heartbeat, trying to bring back something that was already dead. That night, I realized, the thing about secrets is, they always demand to be seen. And once they are, they destroy everything that tried to hide them. They say that after destruction, there's silence. But that's not true. Silence isn't quiet. It hums. It breathes. It sits beside you and reminds you of everything you've lost. After Mark left, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like an echo chamber. Every step I took bounced off the walls and came back to me, asking questions I couldn't answer. I spent days pretending everything was normal. I went to work. I smiled at people. I laughed when I needed to. But at night, the laughter stopped. That's when Ethan called again, and again, and again. At first, I ignored him. But guilt has this way of turning into loneliness. And loneliness always finds a way back to the one who caused it. He said, "I miss you." I didn't know what to say. He said, "You still have me." But I didn't want him. Not anymore. I wanted peace. A week later, he showed up outside my apartment. It was raining again. Funny how rain never really leaves me. He looked different. Desperate, maybe. He said he could make it right. He said we could start over somewhere else. But as he spoke, I realized Ethan wasn't my escape. He was my reflection. The version of me that ran from pain instead of facing it. So I told him no. He didn't take it well. His voice cracked. He said things I don't want to remember. He called me selfish, cold, said I ruined his life. And maybe he was right. After he left, I sat by the window for hours. The city lights blurred through the raindrops, and I thought about all the doors I'd opened, and all the ones I'd slammed shut. There was the door to my marriage, the door to my affair, and now, the door to everything I thought I was. I packed my bags the next morning. No plan, no destination. Just movement. I rented a small place downtown, one room, no curtains. A leaking faucet that dripped all night like a metronome for my guilt. But it was mine. And for the first time in years, I slept. Days turned into weeks. Mark never called. Ethan didn't try again. Sometimes, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and forget where I was. I'd reach for someone who wasn't there. Then remember that this emptiness was the price of freedom. And maybe that's what healing is. Not a clean slate, but learning to live with the stains you can't wash out. I still think about that day. The day I opened the wrong door. And if I could go back, I'd still open it. Because the truth is, sometimes you have to destroy your life to see who you really are beneath the ruins. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. But maybe forgiveness isn't the goal. Maybe it's just learning to live with the echo. And now, every time I walk past a closed door, I ask myself, what if I just kept it closed?